What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. For today's video, we're going to be checking out and breaking down what appears to be the fourth and final wave of the year when it comes around to Transformers Legacy United. Now, to my surprise, the majority of the figures on this list, with the exception of one, are all mere repaints and retools, which for the final wave of the year 2024, which is set to celebrate the whopping 40th anniversary of Transformers, I honestly do think is kind of lackluster. But let's get stuck into things, first of all with the Transformers core class lineup. So, to begin with, we have the Energon Galvatron. Now, I think we all knew this guy was coming. The writing was on the wall the second that we saw Energon Megatron, and for a tiny core class figure, I actually think he looks really cool. Color-wise, a big step up, at least in my opinion, in comparison to Megatron. The purple looks fantastic, and the jet mode too, I really don't think is slacking. The only issue that I have with this release and Megatron in general would be that they are just way too small. I kind of look at these releases as maybe Hasbro and Takara Tomy testing the waters. If these guys sell well, then maybe in 2 to 3 years down the line, we can finally see some full-blown Energon updates, maybe as Deluxe, Voyagers and Leaders, because if you were to check out some of the other updates that we've seen for this lineup, with the exception of Beast Machines, Energon has been severely neglected. So I am hoping to see maybe some more Energon love in the future, especially when it does come around here to Megatron and Galvatron. You know, this figure I think looks fantastic. Even if they were to kind of blow it up to a Voyager class price point, I do think this mold could absolutely pack a punch. Now we're going to turn to a figure which honestly is super lackluster, at least for myself. This right here is the Infernac Universe Geocron. Now personally, I've been a big fan of all of these updated Rock Lords that Hasbro have been pumping out for the main line. I'm usually a big fan when it comes around to Hasbro and Takara Tomy introducing brand new unique ideas, and the Rock Lords were exactly that. They took an old concept, they put their own unique twist on it, and to be fair, for the most part, I thought they were all rocking. Although unfortunately, when it comes around to what appears to be the final entry into the Rock Lords lineup, this guy is super lackluster. So they've taken Boulder Crash, they've swapped out the head sculpt for something which honestly I don't think looks all that great. These guys are supposed to be rocks, so to see how smooth the texture is on that head sculpt, honestly I think is a big letdown. And they've also swapped out that amazing internal burning magma effect that I honestly thought made Boulder Crash stand out in comparison to the rest of the Infernac Universe crew. So this time round they appear to have gone with a slightly more dark Energon inspired colour, and I'm gonna be real guys, I don't think it looks anywhere near as good as the original. So whilst this is probably a figure that I will be picking up just due to the price point, I won't lie to you guys, I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if this is an entry which shelf warms hard. Changing gears slightly, now we are going to bump it up to Deluxe class, and this next entry I think it's safe to say absolutely caused a ruckus online. This here is the Cyberverse Universe Slipstream, and to nobody's surprise, at least to myself, this right here is for the most part a straight up repaint of the Cyberverse Universe Windblade, a really good looking figure, but I think it's safe to say that the Cyberverse Universe in general has had it rough. With the exception of Windblade, I believe for the most part the rest of the characters have all been mere repaints of pre-existing molds, and especially in the case of Chromia, molds which don't even vaguely resemble how they appeared on screen. And the same can somewhat be said here as we check out Slipstream. So in terms of the recolor, to be honest, I think she does look decent. The brand new head sculpt I think looks sick. They've kind of taken Starscream's original design, slightly stylized it to fit the character of Slipstream, and I think it's by far this figure's biggest selling point. The null rays too are a really awesome inclusion, but what I do think is super lazy and lackluster is they haven't at all retooled the shoulders, the biceps, nor the forearms for you to actually slap the null rays in the traditional Seeker way. Instead, she has to use them as handheld weapons, which honestly I do think kind of sucks. To see any Seeker manhandle their null rays just looks wrong on every single level, and I really don't think it would have cost much at all for them to at the very least had swapped out the shoulder pads. So whilst this is a Seeker that I think I'll be picking up, much like Geocron, I really wouldn't be surprised at all if this one shelf warms hard. And the same can kind of be said for the next entry, which is a shame because when it was initially teased, I was super excited, especially when it was said that Takara Tomy solely led design on this character. So this right here is a G1 Universe Quake, which appears to be an extensive retool of the Transformers Legacy Skullgrin. Now in its defense, it is just that. It is extensive. With the exception of a few joints, honestly this figure upon first glance appears to be a complete brand new mold. I do really like that he does include both of his target masters, those in the form of Tip Top and Heater, but much like we saw from Needle Nose, these are super basic when it comes around to design and are definitely slacking in comparison to what we did see back during the Transformers Siege days. days. The tank mode though honestly leaves a lot to be desired. Whilst I do think it is a slight improvement in comparison to Skullgrin, the entire front end just looks like a hot mess. Now you guys have to bear in mind that Hasbro have been making Transformers for donkey's years, for 40 years, and now we're in 2024, this is the tank mode which they're offering to us. Seriously, I think this sucks. All you have to do is take a look back at some of the past tank formers, such as the 2007 movie Brawl, and I think it single-handedly wipes the floor with this brand new version. Not to forget that judging by the images from the robot mode, much like Skullgrin, I think this guy is going to be a glorified paperweight. He doesn't appear to be packing any rolling wheels at all, so the tank mode is going to be stationary, which again I think is super lazy and cheap, especially as the price difference between this release to the original 2007 Brawl is massive. I mean, come on Hasbro, slap some wheels on the underside, get out of your cheap ass budget stage and give us a decent figure, because right now, unfortunately for the deluxe class price point, again, I definitely think this guy's slacking. Although, completely flipping my complaints upside down, we are now going to turn to an entry which most definitely does have the touch, and is without any doubt at all the figure to jump on when it comes around to Legacy United Wave 4. We have the G1 Universe Optimus Prime. Now, I think out of all of the figures in Wave 4, this was by far the one that I was the most looking forward to seeing how exactly it was going to turn out, because it was rumoured for a very long time to be directly based off the original G1 80s Optimus Prime toy. Now, we very recently saw the missing Link Optimus Prime. I was curious to see how this was going to compare in comparison, especially as it is a fraction of the price point, and I think this may just be one of the best mainline deluxe class figures that Hasbro and Takara Tomy have dropped in a very long time. This looks amazing. Pretty much an affordable version of Missing Link Optimus Prime. The robot mode is everything that you remember from that original G1 toy, although this time round has been souped up to the max when it comes to articulation, and in some areas maybe even more poseable in comparison to Missing Link Prime. He will also come packing with his Ion Blaster and Energon Axe, and to top it all off, an inbuilt Matrix of Leadership. The truck mode 2 I think is an absolute knockout, and to truly ice the cake, those tyres are PVC, much like we did see from the Minibot Beachcomber, so when it does come to rolling out into battle, I should imagine this guy will have no issues in doing so. And I'm hoping that this isn't the only G1 toy-based mainline figure that we see going forwards. It would be wicked to maybe see Hasbro's mainline approach to the likes of a Soundwave, or maybe even a Bumblebee, which very recently was announced to also be getting the Missing Link treatment. So cannot wait for this guy. He appears to be by far one of the best entries that we've seen released this year. Next up, we are now going to be jumping into the Voyager class lineup, which unfortunately also are mere repaints and retools, although in its defense, there is one pretty banging retool. So let's get stuck into what has to be the most lackluster out of the wave, that being a Voyager class Metal Hawk, this time slightly redecoed to resemble his original OG toy. Now, whilst I do definitely think this looks better in comparison to the original, I don't think to the point where it is worth double dipping on this mold. And to be quite honest guys, I'm quite unsure as to why they even felt the need to reissue this guy, just because he is still super easy to track down. I definitely think again this is going to be another figure which shelf warms hard, and it is a shame that a figure which does appear to be readily available has taken the spot of multiple mainline releases, which honestly I think are way more elusive in comparison to this guy. And then the final Voyager class to round off 2024 would be the Animated Universe MotorMaster. Now, as I'm sure we all expected, this is a mere repaint with a brand new head sculpt of the amazing Animated Universe Optimus Prime, and I think for the most part it looks banging. I guess the biggest appeal when it comes around to this guy is that he will be way more affordable and a lot easier to obtain in comparison to that original BotCon exclusive, which I think is brilliant. For the most part, I think the robot mode is absolutely packing a punch. The brand new head sculpt I think looks sick. It has been slightly updated, but I still think fits the character down to a T. And for the most part, the truck mode too I think is packing a punch. The only thing which maybe I would have liked to have seen from this guy would have been a brand new accessory. You know, originally Optimus Prime was supposed to transform into a fire truck, so maybe had they decided to include a blaster this time round with MotorMaster in comparison to the Energon Battle Axe, I honestly don't think that would have gone amiss. Either way, this is a day one cop, and I really cannot wait to get this guy. Now let's turn to the leader class figures, which are surprisingly packing what has to be one of the most anticipated releases of all time. Although before we get to that one, let's first of all check out Hasbro and Takara Tomy's worst kept secret, that being the Armada Universe Galvatron, who was technically revealed the second that they dropped the Armada Universe tidal wave, as I do believe this guy was slapped on the back of the box. Now in its defense, when it comes around to the robot mode, I actually think he looks so much better than I was expecting, especially as we check out the head sculpt. Now when you begin to kind of zoom in, the mouth bow sculpt does appear to look a little strange, but either way, a big improvement in comparison to Megatron. I think the second that you slap an expression on a mainline Transformer, not only does it add so much personality to the character, but at least to myself, it's just way more visually appealing. The tank mode though, I think packs the biggest punch. Surprisingly, I think this looks even better in comparison to his robot mode. The only downside to this guy for myself would be that unfortunately there are no extra accessories included. I was kind of thinking that considering that Megatron wasn't all that substantial when it came around to the leader class price point, that maybe they would slide in perhaps a Star Saber or at the very least a Minicon when it came around here to Galvatron. So whilst this is a cool figure, I definitely think that much like the majority of the reveals that we've seen so far for this fourth wave, this guy is more than likely to shelf warm hard. And then last but by no means least, we turn to what I think is easily the most anticipated out of the bunch. We have the long awaited leader class G1 Universe Soundwave. Now I am going to be honest guys, I really can't help but feel slightly underwhelmed by this release, because all they've done is taken that highly elusive Netflix Soundwave and have simply reissued him. Now for those of you who did miss out on this guy first time round, then this is a fantastic second opportunity in owning a really well done Soundwave figure. But this guy was originally released as a Voyager class, so he's still packing Voyager class engineering. Whilst it is easily one of the nicest mainline versions of this character ever released, it definitely isn't without its flaws, especially when it comes around to that cassette player mode. So it is kind of underwhelming to not see them tweak anything. Even the colour scheme I don't think looks as good as maybe it could have. And another thing also which I think is kind of a missed opportunity is that if you were to compare some of the earlier War for Cybertron figures to their brand new Studio Series updates, there is a pretty big step up in the accuracy department. So that is another reason why I was really hoping that this leader class Soundwave would have been a complete brand new mold. Now you guys may be asking, how exactly are they going to go about releasing a Voyager scale robot as part of a leader class package? Well, as we've been seeing more frequently recently, they are going to be including a shed ton of extra accessories, and some which honestly I do think are kind of pointless. So up first we do see the return of Decepticon Rumble. Now this is a repaint of the Studio Series version. I'm honestly not sure who even asked for this repaint. I think the main reason why they've kind of slipped this guy in there is once again just to pad out that price point. The next entry though, to be fair, is quite a cool one. We are finally going to be seeing the release of Buzzsaw, who I believe is the only Insecticon not to be released way back during the War for Cybertron lineup. The only downside to this character, again for myself, would be that he is a mere repaint of the MicroMasters Laserbeak that we saw during the 2018 toy line. I was really hoping that maybe he would be more along the lines of core class quality to match what we have seen from both Rumble and Frenzy, and unfortunately the same can also be said for the third and final Insecticon, that being Ravage. To see that even his accessories are repaints of pre-existing molds, honestly I think kind of sucks, especially for that leader class price point. So overall, whilst this is a banging release for those of you who did miss out on Soundwave, honestly I really think we deserved better, especially as there has been roughly 4 years between this release and the original Netflix Soundwave. And that is pretty much a wrap when it comes around to the fourth and final wave of Transformers Legacy United this year. I would love to get your guys' thoughts on this wave. Do you agree with my thoughts? Do you maybe think that perhaps I'm being slightly too harsh out of everything revealed here today? What are you guys most excited for? I want to thank you all so much for watching, and until my next video, transform and roll out!